Hi everyone, I'm Lucinda Curran and I'm from Eco Health Solutions. Today I'm going to be chatting with one of the speakers from the Environmental Health Conference, Dr Peter Dingle. Hi Peter, how are you?
Well, thank you. Well, very well.
Well, I'm very excited to have you, so thank you for your time today too. So can you tell us a little bit about the work that you do?
Oh, the work that I do. The last 30 years I've been a researcher, educator, communicator. It's been everything. Lucinda. I started out 30 years ago looking at chemicals in the home. In fact, the first one was lead in the air. Then we went into chemicals in the home, formaldehyde. I did my PhD. I did my honours on pesticide exposure. And then I taught for 21 years all about toxic chemicals, particularly around the home. And at the same stage started to develop an interest in the broader picture of health. And so we started looking at lifestyle factors and nutrition and bringing them all together so that people had this, to coin a terrible word, holistic perspective on it. It's so easy to get focused on one area when there are so many things that can be going wrong or issues that are coming up. A simple one is how stress affects your digestion, which affects your level of energy, which affects your, susceptibility to viruses indoor. All of these things play a part. So, in a sense, I've become more of a generalist specialist. But what I'm passionate about is research. And I just love going in and distilling all the scientific journals into my blogs, into my text, into my whatever information, whenever anyone asks me, and into our books, and just showing that around. And then we travel around the country every year, and we do about 100 talks a year. I think, as you can tell by my voice, we're up to about 85 at the moment. And we're literally, I've got a month off now to rest it, and then we're heading off and doing another. And we're pretty well getting capacity crowds around the country, 100 people each time, 120 people at the venues, and people are excited by looking at their health and getting some solutions, because we all know that the medical system doesn't work as such, and yet there are so many good things in it. And if we can understand how to work with it, then, we can regain our health.
Totally. Now, going right back to the beginning, what piqued your interest in environmental health in the first place?
Well, it's one of those accidental things almost. They're accidental, but not. I always had a passion to do with health. And I did a big major project on lead just for the sake of it. And these were in the days when we had leaded petrol. And next thing I know, I was in the media debating with the head of the EPA all about lead in petrol and toxins. And so the next thing I went in and just did my honours on all about pesticides in homes. And so my interest has been that domestic exposure, the individual, not the big community stuff, but, getting in there and seeing what happens at the individual level. And every time I went in, I realised that we knew so little. And it meant that I could just go and research. And that's when I developed my passion for research. You see, I was a born-again student. I did my original degree in teaching and science, and teaching, a little bit of health thrown in. And then coming back at 30, I started to, reinvestigate all this. And then after my honours, I saw this huge area about the home. And this was back in 1980, I think it was 88, and nobody was doing it. There was a small group, one person at CSI in Victoria, and a couple of people in New South Wales. And I figured, well, great area. And the more I looked into it, the more I realised how important the home environment is for everything. From the chemical perspective, in terms of, we often, the vast majority of us, get our chemical exposure from our home environment, or at least our indoor environment. From an influence environment, because we spend so much time, and our research was the one that showed, we spend 90% of our time inside. From an influence perspective, the environment you're living in is what you're doing and how you behave. It influences everything. So we started doing that. Then we broadened out. We did the seminal research on tobacco smoke in Western Australia, which led to the banning of smoking in all pubs and clubs in Western Australia, then in the rest of the East Coast, and finally last New South Wales. Now, why last New South Wales? Let's call it politics. Let's call it politics. So we started looking at mould. I had a couple of PhD students looking at mould and a whole raft of things. And then we started again broaden out into this broader area of health. And we found, it was really interesting. We went into a house and we found this young, I think he was about 2 years old, and he was literally dying. His skin was orange, his liver was collapsing, nothing was working. He was walking around almost in a zombie state. And we realised that there was so much mould in the house everywhere that we had to decontaminate her, but then we realised we had to decontaminate him. So we had to go out and learn about gut health and probiotics and his skin microbiome, his respiratory microbiome, and redo all of that. So we had all this stuff happening all over his body. It wasn't just from, and then because we brought him back in, he wasn't going to get better. But after about 3 weeks of that total detox, a total change of his microbiome, his skin microbiome, his respiratory microbiome, his biome in the house around him, his fungus and stuff, he came back as a new kid. He went from a boy who wasn't eating to one who was eating his brother's food. He was just trying to get everything, and it was such a big change. So we then started thinking, well, hold on, let's look at all these other things. And we realised that the effect that toxic chemicals have on people is really multi-level. It affects the microbiome, it affects our liver, it affects our kidneys, but it's also the reverse of nutrition. A lot of the toxic chemicals affect us because they block nutritional pathways. So not understanding nutrition and that was kind of missing out half of the equation. So we've constantly been delving into that area as well. And it's just exciting because there is so much information coming out now, and really there are few people who understand it all.
That's fantastic, and probably a nice segue into my next question, which is, could you tell us a little bit about your topic for the conference?
Well, my topic is born out of the last 10 years of research, and really it's kind of what I've termed building biology, gut ecology, or microbiome ecology, and what it is looking at the similarities between our gut microbiome and the environment outside, particularly our building environment. And that story I told you about that young boy was one of those, key issues that got me thinking about this. And most people don't realise that their gut microbiome is just, in a sense, a manifestation of what their environment is around them, what they eat, what they do, how they behave, if they sleep well. All of those things affect it. The same as the things that affect our building biology. And it's really clear that your microbiome is just like in my talks, I say it's like a rainforest, and it's exactly the same as the soil. The number of microorganisms in there depends on the richness of that, and the number of microorganisms in our building depends on the richness. And it's not about not having the bad microbes. There's no such thing as really bad microbes. It's just having everything in balance. And so if you can understand the building ecology, the soil ecology, and the building and the gut ecology, and they all go hand in hand, then you can look at them from a different perspective and say, okay, how do I go about doing it? How do I go about repairing it? One of the critical factors that I try to teach people when I talk about the gut microbiome is the environment, in our gut. And what's critical in our gut is pH, the acid alkaline level. And most people don't realise that is what determines what microorganisms live in your gut. So if you don't have the right stomach acid, you've got low stomach acid, like most people do, then their whole microbiome is going to be out of whack. Now, in the home environment, if you've got too much moisture, your whole microbiome, your biome, microorganisms in your home are going to be out of whack too. So these things are so similar in a way, and if we start to think of them from an ecological perspective, a biological perspective, we can deal with them differently. You don't go about, when you've got mould in homes, you don't go about just cleaning all the mould off the surfaces, because guess what? It'll come back. you've got to change the environment. So you've got to change the moisture level. You've got to change the nutrients, for example, the particular foods or substrates that they like growing on. The same in the gut. If you want the right microorganisms, you've got to change the ecology of the gut, the environmental conditions, the pH, the moisture, all of those things. So there's a lot of similarities. And if we can understand that, then we can go back to basics and say, okay, how do I work it all? How do I fix it all?
Totally. Oh, I'm so excited. It's just really lovely hearing all that, because I'm just getting all revved up about being there at the conference. So just in your opinion, I mean, given everybody's going to be speaking about different topics and all of that, why do you think people should be coming?
Well, look, there is so much to learn from these experts. And I've looked at the people on there and I thought, wow, I haven't seen those people for a long time, decades, or even worse, I haven't even met them. I know they've been out there. And I thought, oh, I'd really love to meet that person. I'd really, really love to meet that person and understand what they're doing and so on. And I'm going to actually get to meet some of them. And they've been my mentors. I've looked at them and thought, oh, wow, what they do is so cool. Just another area, we've been running parallel, but we're on different sides of the country, so we never seem to cross. It's really amazing. In Western Australia, I go over to the east and say, are you around? And they say, no, we're in Western Australia. We always seem to miss each other. So this is just a great opportunity. And the topics and the whole conference is just so full of information and diverse information. I've been to some conferences, and look, I used to go to all the scientific conferences, and I can honestly tell you that I would fall asleep. I would fall asleep at some of them, and they were really, really boring. So what you've got to do is, this one is going to be exciting. The presenters are great. The information is fantastic. And there is just so much happening there that I'm excited about going and learning.
Thank you so much. And thank you for your time right now, as well as your time at the conference. It's going to be fantastic. And everybody else, if you want to come and join us, the link is down below for the tickets. So we'll see you there.
Beautiful. Look forward to seeing you all there.
Thank you.